done hiring, and there were always folk desperate enough for coin to answer. A swell of fury rose in my chest, ember-hot and useless. If I could, I'd stick Mr. Pinshaw, the factory owner, at one of his own grinding benches to see how he felt after breathing in poison all day. But I was only 12, an orphan. It took every scrap of my strength just to stay alive and whole. Wishing to do more was like wishing for a star to fall into my pocket. My mother had tried to change things, and she died because of it. I wasn't going to make the same mistake. One of the girls below stumbled, coughing. Soundless gasps shook her frail limbs, nearly bending her double. Her friend tried to reach for her, but her hand slid right through the sickly girl's arm. My own body tensed in useless sympathy. Maybe it was just a momentary flicker. Please let it just be a flicker. Finally, the girl straightened, catching her breath. I sagged in relief as they walked on, slipping away like gleams of moonlight lost in the clouds. That sad scene was my fate if I didn't find the gumption to make this leap and seize fortune by the scruff of its neck. Plenty of Miss Starvengers' other girls were already answering the whistle, trotting down every morning to grind raw ether ore into dust, coming home gleaming and flickering. That was Miss Starvengers' idea of charity. Take in a clutch of young girls from the orphanage, then squeeze every scrap of copper and silver out of us that she could, even if it meant sending us to the haunt shops. We owed it to her, she said, for all the care she'd invested in us. Not me. Never. The factories had killed my mother, but they weren't taking me. Even if I had to risk death and dishonor. I tugged a bit of black cloth from my pocket and tied the makeshift mask across my eyes. 5 paces back along the roof. A turn. My legs coiled tight and strong. I ran straight toward the edge, launched myself into the air. Flew. My feet slammed into the roof of the western wing. I stood, shaky but victorious, shoulders back, feeling the air fresh and triumphant in my lungs. I would make my own fate, starting tonight. I didn't belong here. Everything in the posh halls of the Royal Museum made that utterly clear. No matter how carefully I stepped, my footfalls rang like warning bells through the dim corridors. The displays full of lush velvet robes mocked my threadbare breeches and coat. But none of that was going to stop me. I needed coin, and no one was going to notice a few missing trinkets. My pulse buzzed with anticipation as I crouched before a glass-fronted cabinet. A bevy of small gold trinkets lay within. A handful of rings, a toothpick, a thimble. Because, of course, when you already rule your entire country, you couldn't possibly use a brass thimble. Or pick your teeth with slivers of wood, like the rest of us. Then my gaze caught on something even better. A set of silver hair combs shaped like songbirds. Larks. And silver was easier to fence than gold. I tugged a thin bit of metal from my cuff. The lock didn't look bad. The moonlight filtering down from the skylights above revealed no protective rune marks either. A moment of careful fiddling, and the lock gave a satisfying click. I was about to pull open the doors and claim my prize when a distant scuffing made me freeze. My breath burned in my chest as I held it, listening. There it was again. Something. Somewhere behind me in the hall, with all the swords and armor, also known as my escape route. Wonderful. I could leave the loot and run for it. I could take off my mask and make up some story about getting lost as the museum closed. If they caught me, I'd only be guilty of trespass. Given my age, it was likely I'd escape serious punishment.